Thank you, Casey. Please join me and give a warm Laguna Beach welcome to tonight's speaker, Tony from Palisades.
Hello, my name is Tony. I'm an alcoholic. This is a fun place. Alonzo said that the world's a safer place that we're all in here. Just think what would happen if we all took a drink tonight. We'd take Laguna apart. I never drank like that before. Ooh. Anyway, my name's Tony. I'm an alcoholic. It's funny how the mind works and how thinking works. I got sober December 29th, 1975. And the speaker that night was Chuck C., and he lived around here. And some of you I know knew him. And my life was transformed. My life was changed that night. All the newcomers, welcome. What happened to me was, I have no linear way of, I never know what I'm going to say. But when I came in here tonight, it all came back to me. Sometimes you go through patches. I go through patches where everything just becomes kind of even. And I came in here tonight, and I don't know why, but I heard it all over again, freshly, as if I was back almost 25 years ago. And I don't know what that's about, but hearing the chapter 5 being read, the traditions, and seeing people coming up here, it reminded me back of the old days, because now I'm an old-timer. But I remember the heady experience of when I came into AA that night, and I didn't want to come into Alcoholics Anonymous. But I came into that meeting on that night on the Pacific Palisades group, December 29th. It was a Monday night. And Chuck C. was speaking that night, and there's another man speaking. He was a doctor from Palos Verdes. And he looked like an alcoholic to me, and he sounded like an alcoholic. He said, "My name is Don, an alcoholic." And he sounded like, looked like something from the Lost Weekend. And I think he was a surgeon, he was a doctor, and I think he said his moment of truth was when he came to in the middle of an operation. And the theatre sister said, "No, Doc, you've got to sew her up," because he was going to operate again. And everyone laughed, and I thought they're all crazy, But that's what got me sober, and laughter and fun. And I was swept away by this whole thing, because I wasn't a joiner. And the ironic thing is, whatever the higher power is, or God, whatever you want to call it, he, she, or it, ground of all being, collective consciousness, whatever it is, God, has a very strange sense of humor, because I never joined anything. I drank because I didn't like people. I drank because I didn't like crowds. I wasn't exactly a lone drinker, but I was a lonely person. I was a lonely man, and I kidded myself that I was a loner. My heroes were Humphrey Bogart and John Barrymore and all those people, and the writers like F. Scott Fitzgerald all died of this chronic illness. Those are my heroes. And I thought they were very clever, and I thought I was clever. But the ironic thing was, being a loner and hating crowds, I never joined anything. I wouldn't join a club. And how should I get sober but it was to be swept away by the crowd or by the mass enthusiasm of that first night when somebody got up and said, "My name is Chuck, I'm an alcoholic," and everyone said, "Hi, Chuck," and I was engulfed in this wave of life, because that's what it was. I'd been avoiding it all my life. Ever since I was a little kid, I felt like I was on an offshore island with a pair of high-powered binoculars looking at the mainland. That was my life. I never joined in anything. I was born in South Wales. There's a good reason to be a drunk. All the Welsh are drunks, you know. The Welsh were the Irish who couldn't swim. You must know it. And I had an idyllic childhood, you know, my first few years, and then I went to school at the age of 4, and I knew I was on the wrong planet, because I didn't know what they were talking about. I sat at the back of the class in my school. My whole school career, I had one expression on my face. That's how I viewed the world. I didn't know what was going on. All my life, until I came into this program, I heard my father say to my mother once in next door bedroom, he said, "There's something very radically wrong with this boy." Which isn't a way to encourage your son to grow up with confidence, you know. So I felt radically wrong. There's something wrong with me. I just probably was, as they say, maybe dyslexic or ADD or whatever these newfangled words are. I was just stupid. I was a dummy. Because I didn't know what they were talking about. I had no idea. My first encounter with God was from Miss Thomas, who was our school teacher, and she made us say the Lord's Prayer, "Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name." I didn't know what she was talking about. And when she said, "Our Father," I thought she'd been in heaven. I thought she died, and I didn't know what to make of this. And the Lord is my shepherd and all that stuff. And I remember going home, my father said, "There's a load of rubbish. Don't believe in all that nonsense." And so he closed the door on my faith, because my father was a self-educated man, and he's a great character. He's a wonderful man. But he was an atheist, or so he professed to be. He was an agnostic or an atheist. He was what he called himself a free thinker. He was a Marxist, and he believed in the revolution and all that. But he was angry all his life, and he's a wonderful guy. And I know it's not traditional to say this about another person, but I think my father was an alcoholic as well. I think he was. Although his drinking patterns were different to mine. He would, no, they weren't that different actually. He was a periodic drinker. When he drank, he would go through that personality change and he'd become very nasty, strange. And so I guess he was. And he died 19 years ago. And he died in pain and from heart disease. And he was a frightened man. But what happened to me? I grew up. Went through my life not believing in anything. And because I was so slow at school, a friend of mine is here tonight, and she says, "Don't call yourself dumb." Well, I just say that to get a laugh, but I think I was different, and I couldn't grasp anything, and I was educated into believing that I was pretty stupid. And maybe that's to do with the school or whatever, the society I lived in. And it was after just during the war years, and but I grew up very angry and very lonely because I couldn't fit anything together. And I felt like a failure. And all I had going for me was a kind of artistic streak. I loved music, and I could play the piano, and I used to compose, and I could write a little, and I could draw, you know. So I had an artistic streak, which, if you're in the rugby playing, football playing society, it doesn't go down well, you know. So I never played with the other kids. I was always on my own. And I remember identifying with this when I heard in my first few weeks in meetings in AA. I remember all my childhood standing on the corner of the street while all the other kids were down the other end of the street all playing games. And I used to stand there like this all afternoon looking at my thumbnails. And I used to do things like that, looking through my fingers. My father would say, where is he? My mother would say, "He's up the end of the street there." He's a very strange boy, isn't he? What the hell is he thinking about? I didn't know I don't think I was thinking about anything, really. I just didn't want to be with anyone. So being kind of rejected, I suppose, I'm not doing a psychoanalysis on myself, but being rejected by other school kids, because kids can be very cruel, and I couldn't play sport, I couldn't do anything. And rugby is a national Welsh game. It's not like American football, it's a different game, but it's a rough and tumble game, and I couldn't play it. And I had to go out sometimes and play, but once I caught the ball and all these guys were rushing towards me, I threw the ball up and ran off the field. Now, in a masculine society, that doesn't bode well, I tell you that. They called me a few things. And I used to play these dirges on piano and read poetry, which again doesn't go down well. And So I felt very rejected, which I probably was, and I rejected myself, and so I became more and more angry. And I felt like the village idiot, because that's the way I behaved. I started wearing the mask of being hopeless and helpless. And miraculously, what happened about the age of 17, I left school and I had nothing else to do, and I walked into a local YMCA place, and they had an amateur acting group there, and I asked if I could join in. I felt comfortable for the first time. They put me on the stage, and I had a small part in this play, and I remember the first line, I was playing a disciple. It was about this time of the year, I think. I think it was a kind of Christmas play, and I remember I had one line, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." And I remember standing there thinking, I really fit in here. Sure beats working for a living, I thought. So I decided to become an actor. And I went to college for a few years, and I did what you call the draft here. In England it's called national service. I went in the army for 2 years, and I came out in 1960. Hadn't been at all afflicted by alcoholism as such. I never really was a heavy drinker. I had a few beers on a Saturday night, but I didn't have the money to afford that much. And so I didn't get into any trouble, but I felt, I'm talking about being in the military service, I mean, I felt really on the outside, but I was charmed. I had this knack of falling on my feet, just like a cat. And I had this job as a clerk in the main office there, and I couldn't type, I couldn't do anything. I didn't know how I stayed in this job. The guy who gave me the job used to look at me with a kind of puzzled look, like, how the hell did I give you this job? You can't do anything. Sometimes I'd be sitting there typing away, and I'd be typing away, look, and I'd be, and I'd turn around, and he'd be looking at me like this. He said, how did you get slip through? So I was very lucky. Anyway, I came out of the army, and I became an actor, and I did some more training, and I got some jobs in repertory companies and all that. And then in 1960, my drinking started to take a grip of me, and I remember being ill, and I would buy anyone a drink just to win some friendship because I felt so odd. And I knew that they were all laughing at me. I was classically paranoid, but what I was really was alcoholic, chronic alcoholic in its earliest stages. And in the early 1960s, I started getting into trouble with it. But I became, in a very short period of time, within about 5 years, I became lucky. I was lucky. I got some pretty good jobs, and I started working in London, in the London Theatre, National Theatre, and I was given some pretty good stuff to do. And I didn't trust anyone, and I thought, what's their angle? Not realizing they were giving me a gift, that they were giving me work, because they thought I was talented. But I suspected everyone, and I would turn around and bite the hand that fed me. And I was told about my drinking, I was warned about it.